Right, today we're going to talk more about cost management. So before this chapter, we sort of concluded all the different cost allocation method to allocate the manufacturing overhead, right, into different departments or different product lines, right? We look into different method of cost allocations. And last chapter that we've been through was the activity-based costing. We try to allocate the cost based on different type of activities, whether the activity that meant to support a facility or this activity that meant to support a particular product line, whether activity that meant to support a particular batch. And that's what we look at. So beyond the cost allocation is that we look at cost allocation in this sort of manner. Okay, these are the costs. And then we allocate into different areas. Okay, so cost allocation investigates the various ways to allocate costs that are shared through assignment of cost pools, or define the cost drivers, or understand the activities that in the value adding process. So we can do it this way, right? Okay, this is the variable cost pool, fixed cost pool. But we can also do it the other way. These are the cost pool associated with machine, or these are the cost pool associated with labor hours. Or we can do it, these are activities associated with the setting up the machine. These are the activities associated with inspecting the machine, right? We can do it various ways, okay? But to visualize, okay, the cost allocation is a problem because the cost allocation without the visualization can be quite confusing to users, and the user may lose track of various cost pools and cost objects in the midst. And the one good thing is what we call the Sankey diagram. And a Sankey diagram is a very effective tool in making visual communications of how costs are allocated. That you see here, this is what we call the Sankey diagram. It tracks the flow of things. And this is not in the textbook. This is purely industry practice. In industry, we use Sankey diagram to track cost allocation all the time, right? So we can see, okay, how things are going to some other place. They also help us to see if certain costs are misallocated or, didn't get properly allocated, right? We use that thing. Okay, so if you're interested, there are several Sankey diagram tools that are listed here. Okay, and I think most of them are free. And this link here, let me pull up this link. This link is quite nice over here. This actually give you a list of different tools, okay, to do the Sankey diagram. See, the Sankey diagram is not just used for cost accounting. This one was used for like tracking the FIFA, it's a sports match, and there are lists of tools over here. You can even have Google chart. I didn't know that. Interesting. Okay, so that are the Sankey diagram. Try that. Okay, so when it comes to cost management, we understand that cost management takes shapes after various cost pools, cost objects, and cost drivers are identified. Why? Because you can't manage costs without first understand these, right? Okay, without separate them into cost pools, you can't control them, right? Okay, if it just costs just a big bunch, right? Then you don't know what they are. So if you separate into cost pools, right, variable cost pool, fixed cost pool, or cost pool related to machine hours, cost pool related to certain things, or if you look at cost objects, right, then you can start thinking about managing those costs, right? So i.e., for example, in activity-based management, we learned last time, the accounting function can manage and fine-tune the costs associated with activities, like, for example, setting a budget in the activity cost pools, okay, or reduce the cost of each activity, or fine-tune the numbers of activities performed. Okay, it can be done by looking at cost pools, manage variable cost or cost object. For example, manage the cost of a car, making a car by looking at object. And cost object can be big and small. It can be a cost of a department per se, right? That can be a cost object as well, or can be a project cost of making, let's say a software, right? That can be a cost object, or cost driver, like for example, reduce the labor hour needed in assembly. So all in all, that's what cost management is. You allocate cost into different pools, looking at cost differently, right? After you are able to look at cost differently, you can then manage them in their respect. Okay? So in addition to traditional cost management by cost pools, cost object, and cost drivers, okay, management may also choose different focus to manage cost. Right? Remember earlier we talked about that you can perhaps manager want to focus on a particular lawsuit, right? Cost to let's say drop a customer, or cost to infringe certain patent licensing agreement, that either it's more expensive to pay the lawyer, right, to fight the lawsuit, or more expensive to just pay the company licensing fee, right? Some company choose to do that. You know, what you may think, oh yeah, it's not ethical to infringe other people's right, but when it comes to business, it may just be a pure cost-benefit analysis, right? It's more expensive to pay the licensing than paying the lawyer to fight it. I'd rather pay the lawyer to fight it, right? Some people may believe that way. So we can have other kind of focus, like for example, cost of customer or cost of supplier. Cost of customer, look at the term quote unquote customer profitability. How profitable, right, is to keep a particular customer. And the cost of a supplier is a different perspective. They look at how much would it be to have a relationship with one supplier over the other. Right? And we can also take a look at the cost of the capacity. Okay, if it costs resources to maintain a firm at a certain capacity, right? So therefore, if the capacity is unused, opportunity cost ensues. Right? You want your car factory to be able to manufacture 1,000 cars. You want a big space, big factory, big machine, fine. Those are expensive. If you only make 20 cars a month instead of 1,000 cars a month, which is the capacity, then we know a lot of those capacity are wasted. So that's the idea. You know, capacity costs resources, capacity costs money. If you don't use those resources, you're wasting money. Okay, so this idea of cost quality. Cost of quality is the idea that cost needed to maintain at certain quality. So you see, these are the 4 other aspects that we can perhaps look at to manage the cost. Not just by the easy cost pools, cost objects, cost drivers. No, we can perhaps look at the customer, cost of maintaining a certain supplier, cost of the capacity and unused capacity, and cost of maintaining the goods at certain quality. So we're going to take a look at them one by one. So, but before that, I want you guys to understand there's certain fallacy in cost management. Okay, the first one being people believe that the cost management equates cost reduction. Okay, that's the number one fallacy. Right? Managing cost does not necessarily mean to reduce the cost. Cost reduction itself can be a way to manage cost, but that's not always the goal. Right? Okay, it's quite important thinking about it, because a lot of times when management or business, they approach accountants, they think, oh, I want you to manage cost. Right? Their idea is thinking about, oh, I want a cost reduction. Okay, so from our perspective, we really have to ask the management, what is the goal you're trying to do? Okay, this is that the purpose of cost management is to provide relevant information to the management to support decision making and achieve business objective. So the cost management is a way that say, if I want to expand, right, to the Asia region, right? Okay, what should I do? If I want to choose between two suppliers, right, what should I do, right? How do I manage and report the cost between two departments? Should I drop them, right? Should I only have one supply instead of two or three? Okay, so cost management is really try to look at the cost and report the information, therefore we can manage it. It's not just cost reduction. Cost reduction can be one of the business objective, but it is not the all of the business objective. So understand that it is not the only job of the accounting department. Okay, so don't sell yourself short when you start working. You know, I'm an accountant and my job is cost reduction. No. You're not my student. I'll disown you if you say that. I really, you know, I took cost accounting and all my professor taught me was cost reduction, to cut costs. Nope, you're not my student. I disown you. Okay, so first let's think about cost of customer. What this is. So cost of customer consider the revenue effect and cost effect of different customers. What does that mean? Okay, so with more customer, it brings you revenue, right? But to maintain that customer, to keep that customer happy, there are costs associated with it, right? So the idea of customer profitability start popping up. We start knowing that there are perhaps some customer bringing high revenue, but these can be demanding customers. Okay, so we know if customers are like that, our focus of business, when we manage looking at the cost, we want to maintain our niche, right? We want to be able to keep the customer happy. We want to keep a small but effective employee size, right? So we want to manage the cost to achieve this objective, right? But if we're looking at the low revenue, less demanding customer, right? Then we're looking at volume, right? Size and the efficiency of operation. So we want to manage our costs to achieve this objective. How does it make sense? Does it make sense to choose one operation over the operation? How you decide it is, you see, oh, one thing is more efficient, allow us to pump up more volume, right? If this machine is pumping up more volume is for this situation, low volume and less demanding customer, it will work, but may not work for this one, for the high revenue demanding customer. Okay, so the idea of cost of customer is understand, okay, there's a cost associated with certain type of customer. Okay, so there's no silver bullet in cost of customer. Really, you have to understand one must balance the resources needed against the business objective, right? So if we want to court this set of customer, what do we have to give out, right? If we want to maintain this set of customer, what do we have to give out, right? See, so the cost of a customer, let's say for Apple, okay, may be very, very different than say the cost of a customer, say Dollar General, right? It may be very, very cheap to keep the customer happy. When the customer walk into a Dollar General store, they don't expect certain level of lighting, right? They don't expect certain level of personal room. They don't expect certain level of cleanliness when they go into the Dollar General store. But when you're talking about Apple store, oh, it's different. The Apple store needs to be in a mall, not just a regular mall, the high scale mall. And it has to be certain level of interior decoration so it looks stylish, right? The employee have to be trained in a certain way to the point that they can be called a genius, right? I never get it. They just some of them are so dumb, and that they have to be called genius. Okay, whatever, right? So, but from this point, you can see these are a very, very straight and direct example of cost of a customer. Now, right? Because your customer are different. You want that kind of customer, is that you pay for it, right? So if you treat Apple customer like Dollar General treat the Apple customer, they're not gonna pay for the next new iPhone, right? Okay. So the reason why Apple can have that kind of customer, loyal, willing to pay a high premium like that, because they spend money to court customer like that, right? Okay. So for the girls over here, don't sell yourself short. So if you want me, right, you take me to a good restaurant. Don't take me to those Costco hot dog. That's not gonna work for me, right? That's me. Take my wife to Costco and here, yeah, what $1.50? Yeah, let's have a lunch. Yeah. Okay, so that's the idea of cost customer. So let's try a workshop problem. So, okay, I know we started at 6 o'clock. So let's take a short break and we'll come back to do the workshop. So this is what we do. We finish one topic and do the workshop. Finish one topic and do the workshop instead of doing the workshop all the way in the end. So this way, but this way I have a problem, the potential problem of this, by the getting closer to 10 o'clock, you'll be really tired, right? So there's pros and cons of each approach. If we do all the workshop in the end, you'll be able to learn, right? All the concept in the beginning. Oh, okay, I learned, all right? But if we do it this way, we'll still be teaching like 9 o'clock, 9:15, right? And, take the class may take much longer. So based on the popular request, that we will do practice during the class. So let's take a break and come back 10 minutes. We'll do this workshop problem.
So if you're here, you can take a look at this. This is one of the notes that I kept when I was doing my intermediate accounting. So I practice every questions, the journal entries, how it is written. Every question, you see, just goes on and on. And make my own notes, right? How to do those journal entries. Oh, okay, sorry. What I'm saying is these are one of the notes when I was taking intermediate accounting class as a student. So I put everything on Excel and practice all the journal entries and kept it. And when I study my own note. Okay. And it took a little bit of time to do this, but when I study the things for the exam, I found it very helpful. It's my own note, and I practice every questions. And if there's something that I need to focus on, I put it on red. I put in red or highlight it, right? Okay, so you see over here, okay, on June 23rd, purchase, okay, 15% this. So we're going to do this discount, debited discount, debited inventory, credit cash, right? That's what I did. Okay, like cost model with amortization, like okay, Robinson amortization table to do that amortization of bounds, right? Okay, so how to do bounds amortization orders. I did the order note. Right. Okay. All right, let's come back to class. Let's do this workshop problem. Okay, so when you look at the slides, the workshop problem, I will list the question this is coming from. Okay, so for this one, this is 1058. And I think it's the same as your practice question problems. I do 1058 is chosen, I think. All right. So the question is right here. Let's read it together. Ski Blue Ltd. divides its customer into gold customer and silver customer. So when you're doing this type of questions, if you are doing it on the computer, it's always a good idea to prepare a blank piece of paper beside you and start writing down the notes, okay, in your own way. Try to structure the problem. So when it comes to things like this, you're comparing. This kind of question is comparing to, right? It doesn't really matter comparing to department, to product line, okay, or to whatever, right? It's a good idea to lay it out as is. So we know that we are dividing the customer into gold and silver. So we can do it this way. Start tracking the information. They are gold customer and silver customer. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's a student asked me, they said, Professor, how do I practice these questions and so I can learn it faster? Okay, one good way of doing that is just to try to learn how the question is solved. How do you do that? It's just when you do the practice questions, try to get the answers first. Okay, just put whatever number there, and of course your answer will be wrong, but the book will gonna show you the correct answer and the solution to it, right? And the first pass of your learning is just by looking at the answers, try to figure out how is it solved, right? And instead of just dive right in, try to solve it yourself. Don't do that. Just look at the answer first, right? So after you get the answer, you see the answer, you see how this is done, then you understand the logic, right? And then you do a similar question or exact the same question again, right? That try to make yourself do it faster, right? That's usually a good way to do that, right? The problem of students like dive right into a question is that they sometimes get misled by the questions and go to some different tangent, right? And then when they read the same questions or similar question in the exam, they start getting confused. Where am I going with these questions, right? So if you want to practice to make yourself faster, right? Try to practice to the correct way of solving the problem, okay? Looking at the answers first and try to work your way towards the correct way to solving it. And once you do it for a while, you start getting to the idea how to solve it faster, okay? So we're looking at this way over here. Gold and silver customers. Okay, and we keep looking, read this. The company has a one full-time customer representative per 1,000 gold customer and one full-time customer representative per 10,000. So we know rep over here, gold is per 1,000 and the silver here is per 10,000. Okay, customer representative receive a salary. Okay, customer representative receive a salary plus bonus of 10% of customer gross margin. So we know here rep bonus, right, is 10% times gross margin, right? Is it same thing on the other side? For silver, it looks like it, right? The same for the silver, 10% gross margin. Sometimes it can be different. Okay, we don't know that. Okay, so 10% gross margin. Ski Blue spent 90% of promotional cost on gold customer to encourage their loyalty. So we know that, okay, promotional cost, 90% promo cost to gold, and then which implies 10% is spent on silver. Okay, so we have basic information laid out this way in a chart instead of written out in text. Why did I do this over here? It's because you see, you want to lay out the question in a format that is easily comprehensible to you, right? Because when questions are written out in text, especially when they are written out on the screen, it's really difficult to understand. Even me, I have a hard time to track the information on the screen, right? So always a good way is to write it down on the separate side piece of paper and look at it your way, right? So they have some costing information here. Total, silver, gold, number of customer, okay, average customer representative salary, okay, and promo cost over here, and average gross margin per customer is 660 and 220. So we have more information to compare now, right? So you can do it this way, right? So we know this number of customer, we have gold at 30,000 and silver at 70,000. Okay, we have salary at are they the same? 70,000. Okay, and then we have a total promo cost at $4 million. We haven't separated that, but we know 90% goes over here and 10% goes over here. So we can perhaps do that right now. 3 million, 3.6 over here is 400,000. And the next one is average gross margin per customer. This at 660 as 220. Okay, so we have all the information that is given to us on the separate piece of paper now. Let's take a look at required. What is the axis of gross margin over customer cost for each category of customer? And write a short memo. Okay. So based on this question, what we are going to do, you see they're asking the axis gross margin over customer cost. So we have to figure out, let me drag this down a little bit. Okay. So what we are trying to figure out is perhaps a revenue somewhat item, but we don't have a revenue. We actually have gross, average gross per customer. So we can take a look at the total gross margin for gold and for silver. Let me just write gold again and silver again here. And then deduct by all the customer costs associated with gold and silver. So before we dive right in, let's figure out what the customer costs are. So first we have to think about is over here, right? The salary, because there are reps, okay? We know there's for gold customers per 1,000 customer, I put 10,000 customer, there's one rep handle that. So we know the customer costs include rep, salary, and also what else? The rep bonus. Okay. What else? Yeah, promo cost. Because that's associated with different type of customer, right? And if this is the case, when we take the total gross margin minus these customer costs, that will give us the excess of gross over customer cost. Okay, so let's try to figure out something here. Okay, so we have number of customers over here. So we know the customer salary, this will be 30,000 number of customer times, divided by 1,000, not times, I'm sorry. Divided by 1,000, right? Times what? Average salary, right? Average salary is 70,000. Okay. And over here, we have a salary of silver, which is at 70,000 divided by 10,000 times 70,000. Okay, that's the rep salary. How about the rep bonus? Okay, bonus is at 10%. What is the bonus at? A bonus, what did I write bonus? Yeah, 10% of gross margin, right? But we don't know the gross margin yet. We only know this average gross margin per customer. We can use that number to calculate our total gross margin. 660 times how many customer? 30,000. This over here is 220 times 70,000. Okay. So the 10% will be 10% of this. So what's this number here? 660 times 30, that would be like 198. How many zero? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 0. $19,800,000. And over here, that's 147. How many zero? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 0. Okay. And the rep bonus is 10% of this. So that will be 1,980,000. This will be 1,470,000. Okay, and then the next line we have to worry about is the promo cost. Promo cost over here, right? Is we already calculated 3,600,000, and here is 400,000. Okay. So now we can calculate the gross. These calculated out. This comes to, okay, is 2,150,000. Over here is 490,000. So if you take this together, take this together and divide that, not divided, just subtract that, this will be 1, 2, 1, 2 0 0 0. This will be 1 2 3 4 0 0 0 0. Okay, and that's the number that we want. The excess of gross over customer costs, right? For the gold, it's 12 million. For the silver, is slightly more. Okay. So what's the trick of this question? The trick is figuring out that structure it correctly, right? Two categories, gold and silver. And the next trick is figure out what are the customer costs, right? So we know the revenue over here, the revenue items, the gross revenue over here, total gross margin over here, right? And minus this customer costs will give us the excess, right? So this is one way of solving it, right? So the question will not always look like this, but the idea of customer cost is the same. We think about what over here? The revenue effect of customer versus the cost effect of different customer. Okay, that's all we need when you consider the cost of customer. Okay. What's the revenue effect of a particular customer, and what's the cost effect? Right, done. Right. So let's move on. All right. So after cost of customer, we think about cost of supplier. What is the cost of supplier? Okay, so cost of supplier we consider beyond just the input cost of goods. Right? So when you think about cost of a supplier, you say supplier A give me a price of 10 cents, right, per kilo, and supplier B give me 8 cents a kilo. So should I choose supplier B over supplier A because it is cheaper? One may say, yeah, sure, of course. But when we think about the cost supplier, the idea is we have to think beyond just the input cost of goods. There's probably, bigger story behind it. Why is the supplier B cheaper? Right? Maybe because they are inferior, right? Maybe they are ugly looking, right? Maybe they are farther away, or maybe, right, there's the cost of shipping is going to be more expensive for customer B, the supplier B than supplier A, right? So there are many, many reasons above and beyond just the input cost of goods that we need to worry about, right? Okay, so the idea is when we're looking at the cost of customer is we have to keep track of the things that we spend, the things that we may need to sacrifice resources on due to different suppliers, right? There can be many things, right? So when you're working the problem, you have to think, okay, these are the relevant costs associated with the supplier A, these are the relevant costs associated with supplier B. And then adding them out together, we will understand what are the actual costs of quoting one supplier over the other. Okay, so the idea is choosing a supplier cannot be based purely on the input cost of goods and services. Freight, right, is one of them, need to be considered. Lead and lag time, right? How much time does it for the supplier A's goods to reach to us compared to supplier B, right? Or the stability of their business, right? Maybe one supplier has a more stable business and the other supplier is always on the rocks. Maybe they would be declared bankrupt next month, who knows? The capacity, right, okay, of one supplier over the other, or maybe relationship, purely relationship, okay? And so for a lot of students, they may think, why relationship is important. What's the point of having relationship, the price should be not king, right? Actually, that's not true. In many business, this trumps everything, the relationship. Especially in Asia, in Japan, the relationship between business is very, very important, okay, more than anything else. Well, let me explain to you why that is. Okay. So a lot of times that, especially in Japanese organization, the company run in a large, the conglomerate umbrella, right? So like the company that I used to work for has like 3,000 subsidiaries, right, under one big giant conglomerate, right? So I work for one small subsidiary. So let's say I want to buy some pencils, right? Buy some like utensils for the business or for the kitchen or for whatever. No, I can't just go to Amazon to buy it. Why? Because I have to use the corporate umbrellas, the associated company to buy from them. Why is that? Because maybe, oh, it just happens my division have excess income. And that division, that company does not have. So by intentionally buying equipments from another company under the same corporate umbrella, I pay no income tax. Right? And in the same time, I can prop up that business over there. Okay? And that's the number one reason why in Japan, it is so difficult for an outsider to break into the Japanese business, because you see, the existing relationship is already there. And sometimes this type of relationship is not as overt like what I just said. Sometimes it can be very, very subtle, right? Because you and the other company that you have been doing business in the same sector for a very long time, you have good synergy with that company, right? You trust that company, right? Okay, you go through the problem through thick and thin. It just so a lot of times that relationship may be even more important than whatever we see over here, depending on what your business is like. A lot of times the Asia business, they prefer stability over growth. In their thinking is, why do I want growth, right? If I have growth, I have a bigger factory to worry about. I have a higher rent to pay. I need to hire more employees, and I need to get a bigger loan. Why do I want that? I just take care of my 10 employees and make them happy. I'm happy. They are happy, right? Why do I need growth, right? So a lot of times that when you're thinking about this kind of cost of customer, cost of supplier, number does not imply everything. Okay, a lot of things that go above and beyond. Okay, just the numbers, right? So the idea of cost of customer, cost of supplier is similar. Okay, in cost of customer, we consider the revenue effect and cost effect, right? In cost of supplier, what do we consider? We consider the cost items, okay, beyond the input cost of goods. Okay, so let's take do a question over here. 1062. Let me bring to workshop mode. So do you guys like this way better? Do the workshop along with the questions? Right, okay, good. If you like this way, we'll do it this way. Yay. Oops. Are you guys able to see the text on the questions? No? Not able to see? Right, so if you're not able to see it, because this is a 1062, right? You can perhaps bring up your browser, right? To see the actual textbook. It's 1062. Okay, activity-based costing of suppliers over here. right? If you can't see it, go ahead and bring up bring your browser page. I'll wait a little bit so you can bring up your browser page to that. So let's read it together. Roscoe Construction Company, RCC, is a company specializing in building roads and highways. As a part of its business, it receives supplies of aggregate from two suppliers, Turac Gravel, TG, and Kilda Corporation, KC. So what do? We see category of two again. What do? Lay it out, right? So one is what? TG. The other is what? KC. It says RCC Purchasing has expressed a preference for KC based on price, but occasionally has to order from TG when KC cannot fill the order. So who has the preference here for KC? KC got a star over here as a preference. I love you, KC. And over here, let's put a few stars here. Good. So RCC has recently had problem with the quality and the timeliness of the deliveries. When a supplier delivers a load to RCC, it goes through an initial inspection to assure it meets specification. Aha! Ooh, there's an initial inspection we may have to worry about. Let's make a mental note, right? And then it goes to a secondary inspection. Aha, that's another one, right? Because you see, when we think about the cost of supplier, based on what we learned earlier, we have to track the cost associated above and beyond just the input price. Okay, so right now we have the same two items here: initial inspections and the secondary inspection above and beyond the input cost. Okay, says here, if the load fails the initial inspection, it goes to a secondary inspection to determine the exact issue. Almost always, the issue can be resolved and the load can be used. Okay, the initial inspection cost $1,000 per load. So we start writing some information on the side. Okay, so since this information is exactly the same, you can do it this way. Okay, and a side note for you guys when you're doing questions. Okay, a lot of times students may have the misconception thinking that if I write less, it will be faster. No, don't take that kind of shortcut. Okay, if you write less, it usually becomes more confusing. Okay, so the best way is to supply the right amount of information so when you read it, you can understand it. So you see over here, if I want to save time, I can write 1,000 without a dollar sign, without per load, right? But then after I finish writing this information, I go back to this 1,000, I become confused. What is 1,000, right? Is it per load? Is it what, right? So writing this slash per load take you no time at all. Okay, so do that. It will help you tremendously when you do accounting problem. Don't take unnecessary shortcuts. Right? The information has to be sufficient, okay, to help you solve the problem. Okay, $1,000 per load. A secondary inspection who is more thorough costs $5,000 per load. All right. If the delivery is delayed, RCC to hire temporary worker to or pay overtime to some employee, the average cost of a delayed load is $2,000. Okay. Delay cost, and this is the this is per load. Delay cost the temporary worker to pay some employee with the average cost of delay cost is $2,000. See, here it is unclear whether the cost is per load or per hour because they are going to pay overtime to some employee. So we don't know yet. So I put a question mark here. I don't know whether this is per employee or per load. Okay. So the following are summary statistics from last year's purchase from the tool supplier, tool rack. Okay, and the Kyoda Casey. Okay, so the number of loads. This is 100 loads, and here is 400 loads. Okay, and the average ton per load here is 10,000 tons. And here is 5,000 tons. Okay. And the average price per ton this is $6 per ton, and here is $5.90 per ton. And here's another trick, right? When you're writing down numbers, if it's a decimal point, underline it. Always do that, right? Or otherwise you mess up, trust me. If you see decimal points, underline it, so you know it's decimal points. And then number of initial inspection passed. So this implies that these many inspections, 94 passed. So 94 passed the initial inspection, right? And we know initial inspection is $1,000 a load. So these are okay, number of initial inspection passed. Over here, we have 300 initial passed, and the number of delayed deliveries. Here we have 10 deliveries late. Here we have 80 deliveries late. So all in all, we start realizing there are certain information that we need to track. So you can move it down, or usually how I write to do this is I will put it side by side, either way. But because we're working the digital way, so I will just drag it down. Okay. But for you, if you have a desktop, you can move it to another piece of paper. When you start to organizing the information, try to solve the problem to another separate piece of paper. instead of me just keep scrolling. Keep scrolling is not a good way of doing things. So we know that when it comes to cost of suppliers, right? First thing we think about is the input cost, right? The input cost has to be considered. So input cost, and these input costs are, let me think about it. What is this? Okay, loads purchased and times the average ton per load, right? Loads times tons per load. We know this, the input cost. And what else are the costs that we need to worry about? Initial inspection, right? Right? And from the question, we already know there are certain batches, certain loads didn't pass the first initial inspection. It has to go through the second inspection, even though it didn't say it here, but the information is already given here. Okay, so we must understand there will be a second inspection. Okay, and what else are there? Others, the initial, secondary inspection, and there is what? Delay, right? Right? And what other costs out there? Let me see. Delay cost, inspection. Yeah, that'll be all. So let's figure out the input cost over here. How many loads? 100 loads times 10,000 tons per load, right? And times, what's the dollar per ton? $6. Over here, we have 400 loads times 5,000 tons per load, and the price is $5.90. Okay, how about initial inspection? Okay, so initial inspection, we know that inspection is performed on every load, right? If you use this 94, it would be wrong because these are the 94 that passed. Right, so every load go through initial inspection. So how many loads are here? 100 loads times inspection. Where's the inspection cost? Did I write it down somewhere? Over here. Okay, $1,000 per load. Right? And how about on this side? $1,000, and how many loads we process? 400. Right? How about secondary inspection? This is easy, right? So these already passed first inspection, so the secondary inspection will be what? $5,000 per load. Okay, and then over here, is 400 loads, 300 passed, right? Times what? 5,000 per load, right? How about delay cost over here? Delay is numbers of delayed deliveries. So see, it's given to us. Number of delayed deliveries over here. So in the beginning over here, we didn't know delayed loads. What's the cost driver? Remember? Over here? We don't know whether it is per load or per employee hour, right? Or number of delayed deliveries. And now we see here number of delayed deliveries. We can pretty much sure, okay, they're talking about number of delayed delivery. One delay, okay, is 2,000. So then we can calculate over here. Let me get my delay cost. There'll be 10 delays over here times 2,000, right? And then here we have how many delays? 80 delays times 2,000. Okay, so here comes a point of preferences, right? Like me, the way I do things, I like to just write out a formula instead of calculate it outright. Why? Because I can always go back to see if I write down the formula wrong, to see something that I did it wrong, right? And when I do the calculation, I just calculate all together. That's how I like to do things. But everybody different. Everybody says, okay, I'm going to calculate this right away. I'm going to calculate this right away, right? And my personal preferences is lay it all out. And then write it, right? And to make sure my structure it correctly, right? So over here, when I added all this all up together, I got a total cost of supplier. Okay, and this way, when I re-inspect, if I have the time, re-inspect my questions, I can go back and forth and check against the information that I write down. And then when I calculate the questions out, right, we can get this. So what's it required? Ask here. Calculate the effective cost of a ton of aggregate, okay, from the two suppliers, assuming that last year's experience are representative. Okay, so they are telling us after the calculated over here, we have to calculate the cost per ton. And we already have this information here, right? Okay, we know that's the total tonnage. So we are going to take this total cost of supply X, or to say this is Y, X divided by what? What's over here? 1 million, right? Over here, what's that? 2 million. That will give us the whole answer. I think that to save the time, this will come to 615, and over here will come out to 643. Okay. Right, that will be the answer. So from the look of it, you know, the KC here, the one that the company loved, because there's a star here, love. Well, let's do a let's do this. Okay, this is preferred, right? And the preferred company are actually a bit more expensive, right? So one may think from the pure dollar and cents perspective, right? We should drop KC and go for perhaps the TG instead. But if we take this information as a whole, right? Wow, look at that. Okay. This KC company can handle more loads. They perhaps have a bigger capacity, but the KC has shown the problem, right? You see, out of 400 loads, only 300 pass the initial inspection. Instead, 25% of KC's product have to go through a secondary inspection, right? It's actually pretty bad. So even though their cost per ton is cheaper, KC, but after we look at all this information, like preferring KC, I'm not sure. After we look at all this information, right? I better tell the boss, no, it's cheap, right? But no, we are actually paying by other way, right? But a lot of times that company intentionally keep more than one supplier. Okay, why? Because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. What if one of the company will go belly up, or one of the company will be engulfed by let's say, wildfire, tornado, right, or hurricane, any other reason, right? So a lot of times that, not all the suppliers can supply the goods, right, equally well or at a very good price, but we intentionally keep them around, right? Because we don't want to give our supplier the signal, oh, I'm completely dependent on you, right? We know that we want our suppliers on the hook. You say, okay, if I don't like you, I can drop you, right? But I keep you around, but I'll let you know, right? You're not doing well. If you keep doing like this, guess what? I'm going to reduce your order, right? Okay. So one thing, gradually, the more you enter business, the more you will learn, right? It is better to keep the door open than completely close it. Don't ever do that in business. Keep it open. Keep the communication channel open. Don't give out the ultimatum that easily. Don't completely shut the door. Right? It may be a little bit different in relationship. You know, if you say goodbye to your girlfriend, boyfriend, it's better to just clean cut, right? But in business, not like that, right? It's like, yeah, you know, call me, right, sometime, right? But if you do that in your relationship, that may be problematic. But in business, that's actually the principle. And you know, right? So that's the cost of a supplier. Let's think about the next one, cost of capacity. Okay, so cost of capacity comes from the idea that earlier we already discussed. Capacity needs resources. Capacity needs money. You know, it's not free. Right? So the resources used in resource supply, these are the idea you have to think about first. So capacity, it requires firm to supply resources at a certain level. Okay, for example, paying rent, keeping 3 factories instead of 1, right? Buying bigger machines instead of smaller machines. Okay, so that's the idea about capacity. For example, the space, time slots, buying more energy. In the future, right, when the carbon emission or carbon trading scheme happens, will be to buy the allowable carbon emission allotment, right? Because in the future, very, very likely that it doesn't really matter what you do. Even if you are not in the manufacturing sector, the things that you do will still cause carbon emission, right? So just like the idea, we think that the electronic car does not emit carbon gases, but that's not true because the process of making those cars still make carbon gases, right? Still pollute the world. So we have to think in that way, right? Everything we do will cause carbon emission. So in the future, if we want to be able to make more goods, we may have to purchase a higher level of carbon emission allotment just to make sure that we can or we are allowed to produce at a certain level. Okay, so this results in what we call a cost of resources supplied. That's the term. Cost of resources supplied. Okay? How much does it cost us to keep things at this level? Right? Just like if you open a restaurant, right? New York, let's say you want to open a steak house in New York, the premium estate, right? So if you want your capacity to 100 seating, right? Okay, that will be very expensive. Or you can have a smaller space, only 10 seats, right? Okay, so that's the idea. The cost of resource supplied. You're trying to use resources in order to maintain the capacity at a certain level, right? So, and the other side of it is the cost of resources used. You actually consumed how much resources. Let's say those, you guys know that the guy does the salt that way, the Salt Bay, right? You know that, is that Argentina? Is he Argentina? That guy does salt that way. It's like, really, yeah, I think it's Argentina, I forgot, right? So he opened a series of restaurants in New York, right? Do you guys know that? Yeah, he did. And, because he's just starting this viral thing, right? So it's like, his restaurant is always the one to first get booked. So he tried to buy a lot of capacity for it, but it just things goes really quick. And people actually find out the restaurant food tastes like crap. It's really, my friend told me, you just go there for the meme. That's it. Go there, taste the Instagram shot, and then go home. That's better than stay for the food. It's that bad. So he may have to pay a lot of money in order to have the capacity. So the cost of resource supplied is very high. But if only 10% goes to restaurant, and that's what we call the cost of resources used, right? So the difference between the cost of resource supply and the cost of resources used is what we call the cost of unused capacity. Why are you wasting this capacity? Right? Why don't you just go to a smaller place, or why don't you find out a way that you can hire to fill the restaurant as many as you can? So that's give us the idea of what we call a theoretical capacity. Okay, the theoretical capacity is the amount of production possible under the ideal condition with no downtime at all. Okay, ideally, my restaurant can sit 100 people, and ideally, right, each one of them that take 30 minutes to churn, right? So 1 hour, 100 seat. Ideally, I can go through 200 customers an hour in my shop, in my restaurant, right? 30 minutes to churn, 100 tables, right? 200. And so the practical capacity look at things differently. So practical capacity considered needed maintenance, inspection, vacation, and downtime. So it's a more practical number. Because if you think about the restaurant, the restaurant business usually fall for this theoretical capacity. Why? Because they see there's so many chairs in there. They always think in terms of the theoretical capacity. But if you're in the restaurant business, right? The capacity there is the maximum number of customers can sit there. But very, very rarely do you ever have the restaurant constantly full. Restaurants only full during mealtime. Right? Okay, so that theoretical capacity is not applicable, right, to every hour of the day. Right? Maybe you have to use a practical capacity instead. And not only that, running things at the theoretical capacity is not only impossible, but it also may cause the cost of quality to increase because the quality may go down, right? Because you always try to run things at the highest capacity. There's no room for error, right? Okay, there's no room for break.
There's no room. Okay, I screw up this plate. What am I gonna do? Oh no! In order to maintain at this cost of capacity, even this food tastes bad, you still have to go out because we have to rush out the food, have the customer finish the food and get out, right? Okay, so running things at the highest theoretical capacity is never recommended. Okay, never. So from the accounting perspective, that we have to advise business owners, right? Okay, when we look at the capacity, it's theoretical capacity is an illusion. You can never run things at theoretical capacity, right? If you do that, others suffer. Employee morale suffer. They're always stressed out, right? The quality will suffer, right? Okay, because you just try to churn the business as much as possible. And that's usually a big problem, all right? Okay, so we're gonna do this cost of capacity workshop 1068 when we come back. Is that all right? Okay, because you see, it's actually quite difficult for me to keep talking. I really need something to drink, especially when I'm wearing my headphone. It's like subconsciously I start to talk louder because I have to, I don't know why, it's just try to hear myself, I guess. My AirPod is not working. And so, right. So let's come back 10 minutes and we'll do this cost of capacity workshop. So do you guys like the pace right now? It's really slow. When I'm going through the problem, I do it so slowly, right? I'm not putting you to sleep, right? If I'm seeing like any of you like nodding, right, I'm gonna just speed up, make it faster. Bam, bam, bam. All right, good. Let's just do it this way. GG.
Really? Yes, you always finish early.
No, today, no.
Why? Because test?
Yeah, because tests. Have to go through the tests.誰と電話する？楽天？楽天マッセンジャー？
LINE かな。about 10 of us here. 9 or 10. Can you just
わかった。ワンワン。Oh shit. ワンワン。
9 to 10.
put it. Whiting. Oh my god. All right, let's come back to class. And before we start this, the cost of capacity workshop problem, I have just launched a quick poll. Okay, you can make multiple choices on this quick poll. Okay. Okay, let me do it again. End the poll and do it again. You can choose more than one. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So before we. Oh, damn it. Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. So I'm running a poll. Right. You can make multiple choices on this poll. Okay. So we want to see whether it is making sense to do the CPA prep courses in the summer semester. Just focus on the 4 CPA exams, right? So you see, like for example, this one here, I just got it today, and the Wiley CPA, right, asked me to review their material. This is their FAR prep book. Let me see how thick it is. All right. 975 pages. One exam, FAR. That's it. FAR is usually the toughest exam to pass. Yeah. And let me just go grab other. You guys want to see other books? Let me go show you. So this is the AUD book. AUD is audit. I think audit is the thinnest. Audit is only 441 pages. And these books is just the teaching book. It's not the question book. And I think with Wiley that you get a lifetime license. Once you register for their course, you can practice their online material until you get your CPA. I think that's their deal. And this is the BEC, Business Environment and the Concepts. Right, so for IT, right, and exchange rate, demand and supply and demand, strategy, internal control, COSO, and the BEC is 644 pages. And the REG regulation is basically the text. Okay? And REG is 540 pages. All right. Okay. So let me see this poll. I hope that everybody voted. Let me see. Oh my God, many people said yes. Depending on the publisher of the material, good. Depending on the instructor, good. Depending on the price, good. And some of you say no way. That's very sad. We have to do a better job. But only one of the 36 says no way. I can't see who is who, but it's, so don't worry when I ask for like this. Yeah. So yes, indeed, the Amy, our departmental chair, asked me to explore the idea of starting these CPA prep courses for summer. And because that we find out that our students usually short a few accounting courses for their CPA 150 credit requirement, right? So the perfect solution would be just let them take a few courses, 4 classes in the summer, and they can have targeted course for CPA preparation. Because you see, not every student want to go extra year 4+1, right?
And not every students want to go an extra master's degree, right? So the idea is that instead of going to community college, take some really cheap but useless courses, why don't they just take targeted courses, right? So they can prepare the CPA exam, right? It sounds good idea, but our problem from the faculty perspective, what's the issue? No one wants to teach it. Really, no one wants to teach this kind of course. It's too much. Like, if you ask me to teach a course that goes through 1,000 pages, right, over the summer, I'd rather die than teach this course. I don't want to teach this course. It doesn't matter how much they pay me. I don't want to do it. Yeah, so it'll be hard. Yeah. But me? Oh, okay. I never did the CPA exam because I went through a completely different route. When I was going for the CPA exam, my boss told me, no, we don't want any more CPA, you do CISA. So they want me to go to an information system audit route instead of CPA route. So in my career path, I never touched financial accounting. Never. Even though I'm in accounting, but my boss would never let me go take financial accounting. So I stayed in internal audit and information system audit. But my career path, like over this time, I have my salary was always higher than financial auditors because the information system audit is more considered a more specialized path. There's much fewer information system auditors, security auditors out there. So it's very interesting. But the average, the consensus for CPA exam is that you need to spend at least 200 hours study, okay, each exam. That's the general consensus, 200 hours, average. That's average. So that means some people spend 500, some people spend only 100, right? But 200 is a good time, right? So, sometimes you have to do some mental calculations. What does this 200 hour mean, right? If you're going through this 1,000 pages, of course, not like 1,000 pages, you have to study every page, right? But chances are the 600 pages out of this 1,000, you need to really pay attention to. So, right? So if you think about it, the 600 pages, if you want to divvy it up into the 200 hours, so you think about it, that you have to go through like how many pages an hour, and then you have to make sure that when you go through this, the information will be like seared into your brain. You won't forget it, right? So think about it is sometimes the time flies by very quickly, right? When you did not pay attention to it, you just think, I can just go through 100 pages in a day. Try, you're just gonna forget it just as fast. The problem with the summer class is always like that. It forces students to learn so much material in such a short period of time. Even the student can do it, a lot of them forget very fast, right? So the way we're doing it, or I'm doing it, is give you as much study guide material as possible, okay? So later on, you can always go back to review, right? So it's not like you're going to remember the whole thing, but at least there's some things that you can hook onto, you can anchor your memory, right? And then I guess you can always come back to my YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm a YouTuber now. Good. I never imagined I would be a YouTuber. It's quite interesting. Yeah. Right. No, we will collect this information, and I'm gonna keep investigate how much we're gonna set the price. It's most likely just the same cost as the regular classes in San Francisco State. How much do you guys pay per credit? It's like $600 per credit? More than that? Huh? $600 per credit. So it's like a 3 credit. It's like almost $2,000. Wow. Wow. Expensive. Wow.
Even more? Wow. And it comes back to it. This is a state school. It's supposed to be cheap. It's not. Oh my God. Wow. Damn it. You know, personal story. So I paid my way through university. Yeah, I really did. You know, because my parents weren't there. They've gone when I was young. So I have completely did it all by myself. I don't think it's possible today in this day and age that a student pay their own way through college and study in the same time. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I used to do. My first job was in Burger King. Yeah, that's what I did. Burger King, wrapping hamburgers, and back in the time, right? Their production line is different. So you pre-made the burger, just waiting for the customer to come, and you'll mark the burger with the time on the burger on the paper. So if the burger you made is not consumed in 10 minutes, you throw it away. That's back in the days, like 25 years ago. That's how the fast food joint was up, how their operation was like. And I threw away so many burgers when I was working, and then it literally get me sick. So, you know, after working for a burger joint for a while, you know, it cured me, you know, of a hamburger addiction. I never want to eat a hamburger again. You know, so if you are like particularly addicted to fast food and you don't want to eat fast food no more, just go work in McDonald's or work in wherever. You know, you will hate it. You know, after working there for a month, I guarantee you, you know, you won't like hamburger anymore if you do that. That's what I did. So, right, let's go to this 1068. All right, let me bring up my textbook. 1068. Okay, do you guys have that bring up in front of you? Do that. All right, let's read it together. Marcia Chocolates produce gourmet chocolate products with no preservatives. Good. Any production must be sold within a few days, so producing for inventory is not an option. So there's no like WIP. Pretty good. Right. So Marcia's single plant has the capacity to make 90,000 packages of chocolate annually. Okay. Currently, Marcia sells to only 2 customers: Vern's Chocolate, a specialty candy store chain, and the Mega Stores, a chain of department stores. Vern orders 45,000 packages, and the Mega Store order 15,000 packages annually. Variable manufacturing costs are $10 per package, and annual fixed manufacturing costs are $540,000. Okay, so what cost per package should the cost system report? Why? If you need more information, answer the question, describe it. So this is a question. Let me see here. That we want to assign the capacity cost, and same thing here. What we see. Okay. Now we have over here, any production must be sold within a few days, so inventory is not an option. Must be single plant has a capacity to make 90,000 packages. Current sell to only 2 customers: Vern's Chocolate and the Mega Store. Okay, so we have that classic problem again. There's 2 for us to consider, right? And in this concept, the 2 of them is one is what? Let me find my pen. Hold on. Two customers, Vern's Chocolate, and the other is what? Mega Store. And
Marcia's capacity is at 90,000. Okay, so Marcia sold only to two customers. Okay, and Vern's orders what 45,000 packages, and I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Sometimes I can't see the output of this because I'm putting the question in front of me. So let me put the whiteboard. Where's the whiteboard? Okay, good. Okay, and mega store is 15,000 per unit. Okay, so then we have what? Variable MFG at what? $10 per package. Okay, and then fixed G cost is $540,000. Okay, so when you look at this information, right, the capacity that need to be allocated, what is the capacity we're purchasing in this question? To make 90,000, right? That's the capacity. And the cost associated with making this capacity we can see is what? Only this. Okay, this question is easy. It only gives you one thing that's associated with making things a capacity. This variable cost has nothing to do with the capacity, right? It doesn't really matter, right? Okay, so we only look at this fixed cost because this fixed cost is directly associated with this capacity. But understand that other questions, they may bring you other cost items that may be associated with, right, the cost to maintain at that capacity, right? Capacity cost of the capacity supplied, right? So we see that the cost of capacity supplied is 540,000 divided by 90,000. That's the capacity level we want, right? Okay, so this means $6, okay, per package. So we should assign $6 cost of quality, right, using our capacity if it is produced at 90,000, right? So if produced at 90,000, right, the allocation should be 90,000, I'm sorry, should be $6 per package. That will bring the cost to $16, right? Because this $10 variable cost plus this the cost of quality assigned over here, but the actual cost of capacity used is actually at how much? Only these two customers, right? 45, 15. That is 45, 15,000, right? So that will be
$9 per package. So as you can see here, the cost of a capacity, right, is $3 per package. That's a lot of money, right? Okay, that's the difference between the cost of capacity supplied and the cost of a capacity used. Okay. That is $16. Okay. So it's quite interesting if you think about it, right? So if you are Marcia's chocolate company, if you try to set the price, you notice one thing really interesting, right? If you produce at the current level, that is 60,000, right? Over here, okay? And you produce 90,000 over here, right? In order to make a $5 per package margin, right? You have to sell it at $21, right? Over here. And here, you have to sell it at $24. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is 90 over here. This is 60 over here. So did you notice one thing really interesting here? That if we produce less over here, not at the capacity, our selling price has to actually be higher. Did you see that? Because over here, we have to absorb the cost of quality wasted over here. Because we only produce 60,000 instead of 90,000. Okay, so if we produce at 90,000, right, our cost can go down to 16. And then if we want to maintain $5 gross margin per package, our price can set at 21 instead of 24. Okay, so from the accounting perspective, this is one of the ways you can see why mass production, why running things at the capacity is so desirable, right? So if you look at airline, you can immediately understand why they always try to fill the seat up, right? Because if they don't fill the seat up, that's what they're looking at. Their margin entirely completely goes down. They have to raise the price really quite a bit in order to make up the wasted capacity. Okay? You see over here. Do you guys see that? Nod your head if you see it. Right? The difference between the selling price. Right? So let's say, just get another example. Let's say if we set the selling price at $20. Right? If we set at the capacity, our cost is 16. Right? We make it $4 per package. And then 90,000 package, we can make 360 in operating income. And over here, if the price is 20, same price, but we are not producing at capacity, we are only making $1, right? And then 60,000 units. So our operating income is only 60,000. The difference in operating income in these two scenarios, that's $300,000. That's how much difference it can be when you're running capacity and not running capacity, right? So the cost of capacity is actually a very, very important concept when you put things two and two together. And we choose to use this simple example is by choosing only one item associated with the cost capacity to illustrate this. But when you have more cost associated with maintaining things at a certain capacity, you will see, how much it actually matters, right? Because you see, running an airplane, you fuel the airplane regardless. It doesn't matter you have 1 passenger or 10 passenger or 100 passenger, you have to fuel it. You have to pay the airplane the parking fee, not the airport, the parking fee, the landing fee, right? That's how airport makes money, Every time you land the airplane, they charge you.
And you want your gate closer to the main gate, they charge you a better premium. So if you find that you have to walk very long, right, walk to get to your airplane, that means your airplane company is a cheapo, they don't want to pay the premium to get closer to the gate. Yeah. So, and you find that your time is like 11 o'clock and all that is an odd time. Nah, that's cheap flights. Yeah, expensive flights are like in the middle of the day, right, because they pay a lot. So those costs associated with keeping things at the capacity, right? So when things like that happen, if you don't fill your order to the capacity, your business suffer, right? Like this, the difference is huge, right? When you do not do things at the capacity, even at the exact same selling price. See? All right, next. Pardon me? The margin is assuming they want a target price. Okay, they want target at $5 margin per unit, per package. Okay, so you can say, okay, doesn't matter how much we just want is $5 margin per unit. That's the target price approach. The target margin approach, or they can set a set price. Say the example I used was $20, right? Okay, that's a set that amount that we sell the chocolate for. Okay, or the other way is $5. If we set $5 margin, then the selling price will be different. Right? Okay, so either way. Okay. Right, next, cost of quality. Okay, cost of quality is yet another concept that you have to go through. You understand that the quality comes from money, right? You pay to maintain the quality at a certain level. Why? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Because if you don't maintain the quality at that level, what happens? Spoilage, defect, return, quality costs. Okay, so if you don't invest in quality, right, your company can potentially suffer, can incur cost to make up for the bad quality goods that you produced. So let me see here, go back to our lecture slides. Right. So the cost of quality, the idea comes from the conformance cost and non-conformance cost. So conformance costs are the costs associated with keeping goods and service at a reasonable level of quality. Right? We have to pay for inspection, we have to pay for machine maintenance, we have to pay for various investment. And non-conformance costs are the costs of failing to control the quality. Right. So internal failure, like for example, the scrap, rework, reinspection, or external failure for repair, return, and lost sales. Right. So now we're thinking, okay, if I invest a lot in quality, yeah, I can reduce this non-conformance cost. But then, how much am I going to spend? Yeah, sky's the limit. No, it doesn't make sense. Right? But if I don't invest in quality, then my non-conformance cost will go up, right? So what we're looking at is something like for conformance costs, we have to prevent, like for example, material inspection, process control, quality training, machine inspection, all these cost money, and the appraisal, the QA sampling. So things for conformance will cost, but if we don't do, non-conformance will go up. So eventually, what we are looking at is an equilibrium problem. On one hand, if we want quality, you see the conformance cost goes up over this line, the green line over here. Let me try to make it bigger. You see here, this green line, this is a conformance cost. If we want things to have higher quality, the conformance cost goes up, right? But on the other hand, the non-conformance cost, right, over here is the blue line. If we don't spend money, the lower the quality over there, the lower the quality, the non-conformance costs become higher, right? Because you're a cheapskate. You don't want to spend money to improve your quality, and now there's a lot of return, a lot of rework, a lot of scrap, right? So the idea is to find over here, right? Or when you combine the conformance cost and the non-conformance cost together, you found a lowest equilibrium point, right? Over here. Right? So we are not going to do a problem for this cost of quality because, you know, usually what you do is just same pattern that what we did before. You categorize the cost in together, right? And to make a decision whether company should invest, right, in quality or non-quality. And you, same thing that you group the cost into whether they are prevention costs, appraisal costs, into the two pools. And those two pools are what? Conformance cost and non-conformance cost, right? Okay, so that's the idea when doing this conformance cost and non-conformance cost for the cost of quality. All right. Okay. So, okay. Okay. Good. We only 8:30, so we have time for the next chapter. So let's take 36, 46. Yeah. Let's come back. 45, 8:45. Right, and we'll go to the next chapter. Open 8:45. Service department. Displayed.
Yeah. Which one? Which homework? Okay. Write me an email with a screenshot or take a picture of your worksheet or send me the worksheet, and I'll try to help you solve it. Okay. So there's a question that student asked me in the email, and I will take the time to answer that question. So I'm not going to say who asked me just for the privacy, but actually the answer I think most of you will benefit from the answer. So the student asked me that, the student actually got a job, okay, in this period of time. So the job turned out to be quite demanding, right? Demanding it can be demanding in terms of time that the employer wants you to spend on the job, or demanding in terms of the price that the employee is willing to pay. So should you take it in this market, right? So there are several considerations when you're thinking about the job, especially for accounting student. And I want you to pay extra attention to this. Your first full-time job is perhaps one of your most important job in your life. It really is. Because your first time full-time job, okay, that will mold you into a full professional. Okay, so a lot of times that when you reach to my kind of age, you have friends, you have colleagues, you have people that grow up together, right? And some people, they have, you know, that they're smart, you know, they do things better, but they made a mistake choosing their first full-time job. Some people go for the dollar. They want a high-paying job, and in a very abusive environment, right? Abusive to the point that they get so frustrated in their job, they think, and from that point on, they feel like, oh, I hate working, I hate my job, I hate my coworkers, right? And not only that, if you feeling unhappy in your first full-time job, you probably won't get good reviews or good recommendation from your full-time job. So the effect cascades down to your future job, right? So when you're choosing your first full-time job, always be extra careful. And dollar is actually not the idea that you should look at. Is how do you like that workplace? How do you like that work environment? How do you feel the place make you work? How do you feel about the co-workers? Those are the important things, right? Because your first full-time job is the opportunity to mold yourself, right? To be an industry professional. Now, a lot of times that people go for their first-time job in the military. Why? It's actually a very good idea, because military is very structured. It's very similar. Some people choose a first full-time job in a government institution. It gives you structure. It gives you rules, right? It lets you understand what you do things certain way, that the expectation is always there, right? So you understand what it is, what work is. But sometimes people go for a completely different kind of job, high-paying job, high risk, high pressure, right? And then they feel unhappy, right, doing that job. So, you know, when you're choosing your first-time job, always ask yourself, right? Do you like them? Do they like you? Trust your instinct. Okay, even though it can be a high demanding environment, a lot of time need to be invested, right? You're not getting paid very well. But if you have a gut feeling saying, I'm gonna like this position, I'm gonna like this place, I like their business, you know, I like the boss, right? I can be with them. You know, you think about it, right? How many hours a day? 24 hours a day, right? And you spend like 8 or sometimes even more hours in your work, right?
Like for me, there's a period of time I spend more time with my coworker than my wife. Right? So your coworkers actually become even more important, right, than your well-being in your life. So put that into consideration. Right? You really want a place that you feel you belong there, you fit, right? To the point that eventually, when you're thinking about leaving, you can leave with a good feeling. You can leave with the door half open, right? You can leave with a good recommendation, right? So the rest of your career will not be negatively impacted by your first job, okay? And if after your first job, right, people look at your resume, they're gonna ask questions. You know, why you only spend 3 months there? Why you only spend 6 months there? You know, or why is this, why is that? But if you have a good first time job experience, 3 years, 2 years, and people give you a good recommendation, and it's much easier for the job afterwards, right? So it is not an easy answer to give when you're thinking about the first time job, but the number one criteria that you should always think about it is, how do you think? Do you think you're gonna fit there? Do you like the people there? Right? Do you think that people will treat you with respect? Right? Do you think that you will have a place to grow? Right? Ask those questions. Okay, those are important questions. You know, if you go to a place that just treats you like a cog, you know, in the wheel, you know, I don't know. Right? So I hope that answers some of your questions. But spend extra time always thinking about it. You know, what's your first job? It's gonna be important because it will impact the rest of your life, literally. All right. So let's go to this next chapter: service department and joint cost allocation. Okay, these service department allocation, joint cost allocation are, how do you call that? They are not very difficult. They are just cumbersome. It really is. So when we take a look at the service department, we'll just start thinking about it. You know, with this idea, who actually pays for the accounting department and the services that accounting department brings to the table? You know, we don't actually make goods. We don't actually make product, right? So earlier we talked about in the airline. The airline has accountants, right? Okay, but who pays for that accounting department? It has to come from somewhere. We, as an accounting department, we don't actually sell a ticket. We don't actually make more tickets, right? Okay, but that service has to be paid. Okay, so you see, idea is like this. The accounting function in the business is a typical what we call the service department. It provides the necessary service within the company so that the firm can continue its operation. We cannot live without accounting department. Right? So cost allocation for this service department considers the idea that if the service is used, it must be charged to someone, to somewhere, okay, even within the company. Okay, so there are many kind of service department like this. For example, the IT department. You know, the IT guy. Remember this IT guy from Jurassic Park? Remember him? Yeah, he's so fun. Yeah, I remember this. Or the HR department, or the janitorial department, right? Okay, these are the typical service department. They don't really produce goods and services for the company to sell, right? But they service the entire organization in order to make sure that the organization can survive, right? Or the internal control department, or even the security guard. There's the mall cop on the Segway. Very interesting. Okay, so to allocate these service cost charge, right? So there are several ways to do that. And taking a step approach, the first step is to determine the allocation base. Now, I wrote allocation base, I'm sorry, it should be allocation base, not allocation case. So what we think is, how are these resources used? By hour, okay, by number of employee in the user department, by service visits. Like for example, if you have an IT department that handles the, let's say, IT requests to fix the computers or check the email server problem, you probably want to have a ticket system. So you may want to charge the service request by tickets, right? So every ticket you issue to the IT department, your department is going to be charged X amount. Or let's say HR department, the HR department's cost is shared by all the employees. So if your employee have 300, if your department have 300 employees, right, you consume more HR resources compared to another department only have 10 employees, right? That may be a way to do that, or even by just the raw hours need to be spent, okay, to take care of the other department. So that's the step one, okay, figuring out how these costs should be allocated. And step two is determining the allocation method, okay. The allocation method, usually there are three methods that we discuss here. One is the direct method. It charges all the cost to user department. I don't care what service department do, and every cost is directly charged to the service, to the user department. And step two, the second method is what we call a step method. Allocate some service department cost to other service department cost, right? So for example, we will allocate the accounting service department to HR and then to other user department. And the third one is what we call reciprocal method. Recognize the inter-department service charge. So I know it's quite confusing at this point, so let's take a look at them in a graphical manner. Okay, so the direct method look like this. You have, let's say, information systems department and administration department. Okay, so direct method is I don't care what they do over here. All the cost service department is directly allocated to the user department here. Department 1, Sierra track, Department 2, Cascade track. Okay, so this is allocated by computer hours used by either department. If this department use 900 hours and this department use 100 hours of computer, right? They're gonna be allocated differently. And over here, okay, the service department administration is allocated by employee counts. So if the Sierra track have more employees than the Cascade track, the Sierra track would potentially have handle more costs allocated to them because they have more employees and more administration resources will be dedicated to them. So in the direct method, we ignore, okay, the intermediate users. We don't care about whether they do things to each other. The potential issues for the direct method is the service department itself become the blind spot that bears no cost at all. You see, the information system, they have employees as well, right? They of course consume some resources in the administrative department, and administration department also consume information system resources as well. They service each other, right? But in direct method, these allocations are ignored. So they become the de facto blind spots that we do not see, okay? If we allocate it to the user department only, right? So the problem becomes that now we have to solve this problem. Oh, this is no good, okay? The department, we have to recognize those departments as well. So that brings up to the first method that we start recognizing the interdepartment usage. Okay, so in the step method, what we do here, okay, we establish an order of service is recognized among the service department. Okay, so we allocate first into three of them. The service department allocates some cost to administration and in the same time to the user department. So in this perspective, the users of service department are these 1, 2, 3 over here. And once the cost is allocated to the service department, we then allocate to the user department. You see that? Okay, so an order of the service must be recognized among the department, and this order must be kept during calculation. You see, because we are only looking at the 2 service department here. Okay, if you have multiple service department, the order of it must be kept and must be calculated carefully. Why is that? Let me bring up my my whiteboard to show you. Where's my pen? Over here. So if we have S1 here and S2 here, okay, say S1, this is 1,000 service charge. Here is also 1,000 service charge, okay? And we designate it, 50% goes here, U1, U2. And then 25% goes here, and 25% goes here. Okay, so in this case, this will be $250, $250, $500. Right? And then we see over here, let's say 60% and 40%. Okay. So the step method says we have to allocate S1 to S2 first, right? So when we allocate S2, we are not looking at 1,000. We are looking at this 1,000 and 500 to be allocated among this U1 and U2. You see that, right? So if this order was ignored, right, then we'll make the mistake. We are allocating this 1,000 to U1 and U2 and forgot about this 500. Okay, and if there are multiple orders, S1, S3, S4, right? If the order is not kept correctly, right, then you will miss some of the step allocation. Okay, so the step allocation, some people think maybe a little bit inefficient because you always have to wait for the other department's allocation to be laid upon you, right? If that has an order of preference before you. And then you can do your allocation, right? So the potential issue over here is that the order of a service is subjective first, right? Okay, and lead to problem of what we call inefficiency. And not only that, it can also lead to infighting, right? Why? Why you are laying your costs on me is not I lay your costs on you, right? Okay. You know why this infighting always happens like this? Right? Because a lot of times this department performance, right, is rated on how much resource that you consume, right? So if your department consume more resources and produce less stuff, and then you won't get that bonus. Your performance evaluation will be pretty bad, right? So if you have an arbitrary allocation scheme, right, and allocated interdepartmental costs in a very weird manner, then none of these managers will be happy, right? They will always, right, pointing finger at each other. Why is this? Why is that? They will sometimes avoid using certain service, right, at the cost of the whole company's performance. This is very sad, but it happens all the time. Right? So the third method we talk about is the reciprocal method. Reciprocal method is a weird beast, right? Why is that? Because as you see here, that we are recognizing the interdepartmental services over here. We have a service department here, information system, and service department administration, okay? And what we are trying to do is to figure out, you know, how much they scratch each other's back first, right? And from that point on, then we recognize the user department's allocation. Okay, so the potential issues is it becomes quite complicated when you try to solve
department interallocation, because you see, when you have more than one department, let's say S1, S2, S3, S4, if they all service right, to each other, right, then you have to figure out all the inter-service charge of everyone. You have S1, S2, S1, S3, S1, S4, right? You have a combination of interactions, right? Very complicated when you are going large scale of organization, many service department. It becomes really cumbersome to calculate, because you see, this is how we're trying to see here the problem. If you see the next page, if we were to take a look at the similar issue here, S1, S2, and U1 and U2, okay? And we say that S1, S2, they scratch each other's back, right? And then allocate, 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 allocate. So in this case, we're saying that S1 provide 50% to S2, and then 20% to U1, and 30% to U2, and S2 provides 60% to S1, 30% to U1, and 10% to U2. Okay, so if say that service cost incurred, okay, for the S1 itself is $2,000 need to be allocated, and S2 is $5,000 need to be allocated. And how do we solve this? Okay, so we have to solve this problem first. How much did they scratch each other's back? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we have to try to figure it out in using this simple algebra over here. So we say S1 actually equals to its own 2,000 plus 50% of S2. And then S2 equals to 5,000 plus 60% of S1. So to solve this quadratic function, or construct this the function over here, then we try to write it out this way. S1 equals to 2,000 plus 0.5 S2, and S2 equals to 5,000 plus 0.6 S1, right? Then we solve this function. You remember that? Add them up together, or subtract them together in order to get that variable, or you can just plug it in. Let's do that plugged it in method, it's easiest. All right, so S1 equals to 2,000 plus 0.5 times 5,000 plus 0.6 S1, right? Do you guys see that over here? Okay, so then you calculate that. S1 equals to what? 2,4,500 plus 0.3 S1, right? So you have, take it over here, 0.7 S1 equals to 4,000. Then you solve S1. You see that? S1 is finally solved this way, because you have to solve this multivariate function first, right? Then after this, you solve U1 and U2. Okay, that's how annoying it is when you're doing reciprocal method, right?
if there are multiple more than one inter-department, right? So let's say if there's S3, S4, S5, right? It gets really complicated. You have to use a matrix algebra to solve it. You guys remember matrix algebra? No? Yeah, just matrix algebra, right? Solve things like that. It's annoying. Okay. So when you see this kind of problem, reciprocal method, step method, or direct method, right? Most likely that you only see service department. That's it. And in reality, students usually ask, right? Do company actually do this? No, especially commercial for-profit company, they don't do that anymore because it's just more trouble than it actually is worth. But what kind of department actually use? Government, military, right? They still believe in this. Oh, because the whoever consume the service have to pay for it because we have to answer to the taxpayers, right? So if you use the computer service, you have to pay for it, right? You have to be charged to your department. So it seems as if that each department is more responsible, right, for the service charge incurred. But in reality, this type of allocation scheme or the information that is being provided have very, very little value to the management. It always lead to infighting and always lead to favoritism, right? So if in your organization that management try to use or adopt this type of allocation scheme to figure out how much a department, right, is supposed to be responsible for the cost, be very, very careful, right? Because it's always has the potential lead to favoritism, right, or infighting, or even add more work to the accounting department. It's like figure things like this out, and in the end of the day, it really doesn't help company's operation much. Okay, the only thing it solves is the competition between U1 and U2. Okay, or you use more, I use less, or in this case, for the S1, S2, right? Okay, and things like that. Okay, no, it's not 50%, it's 40%. Oh no, it's not 60, it's 75. It's never ending. I've seen organization like this. It's just in the end, it does the organization more harm than good, right? Okay, but the reason why we are learning this is because there are still a lot of organizations, especially those organizations that have a higher power to answer to. They like this kind of scheme because it shows a illusion, a facade of that my department is taking responsibility of the resource that my department consumes, right? It has that kind of, allure to it. So let's try to do one. 1155, comparison of allocation method, Blue Star Company. And with this example, we'll be able to take a look at all three different methods. Okay, let me just bring my browser to that page over there. And you also do that because I think that it's a hard time to see the text clearly. So bring it up on your end to this browser page. Always 11:55. Over here. Oh, let me see. Okay. Do you guys have that page in front of you? I know it's hard to read over on your end. Let me see my best if you can make it bigger. No, I still need my thing over here. All right, let's see. We make it as big as possible. All right, well, that's good. Right, it reads here, Blue Star Company has 2 service department, administration and accounting, and 2 operating department, domestic and international. Administration costs are allocated on the basis of employee, and accounting costs are allocated on the basis of number of transactions. Okay, so a summary of Blue Star operation follows: administration, accounting, okay, employee count, international employee count. Okay, required, allocate the cost service department to the operating use a direct method. Okay, allocate the cost of the service department on the using the step method. Start with administration. And C is allocate the cost of the service department to the operating department using the reciprocal method. Okay, so basically give us the information to use all 3 methods. So the right. So this kind of, for this type of question, the service department, okay, allocation, always try to solve it visually. Okay, always draw it out. Always, no exception. Don't do it just by direct calculations. You will fail. Don't do that. So we have admin and accounting. Okay, and it says here, administration costs are allocated based on the base of per employee. Right? Accounting is based on per transaction. Okay. Then you do this. This is the domestic. And this is the international. Okay. And domestic have 45 employees. Right? And domestic and international have 180 employees. Right? And for transaction counts, the domestic have 20,000 transactions, and international have 80,000 transactions. Okay. Oh, oops. Sorry about that. So how much do we have here to allocate? We have 360 to allocate, and over here on accounting we have 144 to allocate. Right? Okay, so it's very easy. when we look at the allocation of admin, right, we're looking at per employee allocation. So we list out the method, the direct allocation. Okay, so under the direct allocation, we have how many departments to allocate to, and we have 4 departments, right? But in direct allocation, I'm going to show you the trick how it is done. Admin, ACCT, right? Domestic, and INTL. Okay, and in the same time, okay, we take a look at itself, admin, ACCT, right, and allocation, right? So admin to admin, there's nothing. Accounting to admin, there's nothing, right? Here's nothing, nothing. So we are only looking at admin to domestic and international and accounting to domestic and international, right? This is direct allocation because we don't look at inter-service department charges, right? Is that? And so that calculation become quite easy. If you like to solve it in the graphical manner, this is over here. 360 allocated based on employees, right? So we can use the proportional method. Times what? What's our total employees? 180 plus 45, right? Over 45. This is over here, domestic. And on the other one, and you have 360 times 180 plus 45 over 180. This gives us the international allocation, right? Okay, that's a proportional method, or you can do it very easily. 360,000 minus domestic equals to international. You can do that as well. Because this 360 have to be allocated, right, in the end of the day. Right? So you can do it either way. But some people think this is risky, right? Why? Because what if you calculate domestic wrong? Then this will be wrong too. So some people take it the wrong way around, calculate it twice, and then to check their answer, they put 2 and 2 together, the domestic and international together, to see if they comes out to 360. That would be the method to check your answer. Okay? You see that? Okay. And then the other allocation is 144. So 144 over here, right? 144, some of the 144 goes to domestic. Some of the 144 goes to international. Right? You see that? So we just do that over here. Times, what's the transaction? 20,000 and 80,000, right? 20,000 plus 80,000 over 20,000. That's what 0.2 divided by 5. Right? The other one, this goes to domestic. And 144 times 20,000 plus 80,000 over 80,000. This goes to NTL. Okay. So if you want to figure out the departmental cost, and you just plugged in over here, right? Okay, so to go back to that chart that we produced earlier, okay, let's draw a line here. Admin, accounting, domestic, and international, right? What we have is the admin departmental cost is 360, right? But it's allocated out, right? And the accounting departmental cost is 144, but it's also allocated out. And domestic, what is the domestic charge? Cost is 3936. And what is the international is 3.6 million. Right? So we know this is allocated out, right? So you can either do it this way, minus 144, and some of the 144 goes to domestic. I think the number comes out to 28800 and 115,200, and the 360 is also allocated, right, out to two different departments, 72,000 and 288, right? So when you add it up together, you get the total domestic and total international. That's a direct method. Very straightforward, very easy. All right, so next, let's go to the step method. Okay, let's draw those boxes out. And it says what? Start with admin. Right? So in this case, we have this allocation to worry about it too, right? And admin goes to domestic and admin goes to international. So since it's a step method, we have to figure out this first, right? The step one. So admin, how much we have to allocate? 360. And the allocation base is what? Per employee, right? And we know the accounting department has 25 employees, and the domestic 45 employees, and international has 180 employees, right? So when we do that, we split this 360 to all three of them first, right? Okay, even though we know that the accounting has 144,000 to split, but we're not worrying about it now, okay? Because we know the accounting department service charge has an additional portion that is from the admin department, right? Don't forget that. So let's do this first, 360. So let's say 360 times 25 plus 45 plus 180 over 25. That goes to ACCT, and 360 times 25 plus 45 plus 180 over 45. That goes to domestic. And then 360 times 180 over 25 plus 45 plus 180. That goes to INTL. Okay? So what we got is over here. That's 25 over, this is what, 250. That's easy. Okay, so this goes here. That's what, 36,000, and goes to domestic is 64,800, and goes to international is 259,200. You see that? Okay, that's the allocation. And now is the time to allocate accounting. Okay, and the accounting goes to over here and over here. And accounting's allocation base has not changed, right? It's the same using per transaction. So over here we have 20,000 transactions, and over here we have 80,000 transactions. So what we have here, accounting is 144. Okay, so 144 plus 36. Now allocate accounting. We got 36 plus 144 times 20,000 plus 80,000. Oh, it's 20,000 on top. That goes to domestic. Right? So what we have is this 180 over here times 2, right? It's divided by, that means divided by 5, so we get 36,000. And then the other one we have 180 times 80,000 over 20,000 plus 80,000. So we have actually 180 minus this, we have 144. Right, so we get that again. Right, so adding up together, so admin have 360 to allocate 144, 936, and 3.6 million. Okay, and let's say start with this we allocated. So allocated to 3 different departments. Accounting gets 36. Domestic gets 64.8. And international get 259,200. Okay, so next step, adding up together gets to 180. And then we allocate this 180 into 2 different departments, which is 36,000 and 144,000, right? See that? Okay, so just remember that the principle here, when you want to sum things up, you draw a line, then you sum things up. Okay, and when the number is deduct the number, a negative number, you put in the parentheses, right? So over here you see it balance out, leave it to 0, over here leave to 0, and here we got 1036A00. Over here we get 4003,200. Okay. No. This is adding up together. When you draw a line here, because it allocates to here. Yeah, the deduction means that we are allocating this. Try to make this service department into 0. It's the same thing we see over here on the chart. Over here, we are trying to make this 360 0. You see that? So visually, over here, we try to make this 144 0. You see that? It's the same meaning if we put it on a table. We try to allocate this 360 to 0. So I deduct that, right? And I split this 360 into 1, 2, 3 numbers, right? Okay, so some people work better visually. You see that? Some people work this, they like work things visually using this manner, right? And sometimes, like some people think looking at things in a table form makes more sense. Either one. No, sorry, my dog is barking. All right, so that's you guys are good. Let's take a look at the reciprocal method. Okay, so same thing. We still draw things out. Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit tired, so I shouldn't write S1, S2. This is the admin, and this is the accounting. Okay, and this is domestic, and this is international. Okay, and the idea that we know is that they have the inter-service as well. So admin look at the people based on the per employee base. Okay, and accounting take a look at on the per transaction base. Okay, so what we are looking at here is domestic. Admin department has how many employees? Admin department, no, they don't count, right? Admin department counts at 360. Okay, and employee, we don't count that. And accounting department has employee 25, and the domestic here have employee 45. Okay, and international as employee of 180. So when we try to figure out this inter-service department, we must take a look at the whole picture first. So S1 domestic, S1 is the admin, right? Admin equals to 360 plus over here, right? Okay, some portions of the S2 that allocated here. Okay, and what is the allocation base? How accounting gets allocated here? Based on what? Based on transactions, right? So we have 25,000 here, and 20,000 here, and 80,000 here. Okay. So this 25,000, when you add this all up together, okay, that comes to, if you use percentage to do, okay, then we will figure out 25,000. I won't have enough space. 25,000 over 25,000 plus what? 20,000 plus 80,000, right? That means 25,000 over 125. That's 20%. Okay, let me mute the other participants. All right, so over here, if we come back, we know this S1 admin charge is, okay, plus 0.2 of accounting, right? We get our first formula. And the other one, S2 accounting equals to 144 its own, right? Plus of admin. And how do we solve the admin? It's over here. Admin is 25, 25, 25, 45, 25 plus 25 plus 180. Okay, this is how much this comes to. Okay, this is like what? 0.1, right? Right? 250, right? 25 over 250, so that's 0.1 or 10%. So we know the other equation is over here, S 0.1 of admin. So to solve this using a simpler number instead of accounting admin, so that's called the S1, S2. S1, we know that's admin, equals to 360 plus 0.2 accounting S2, and then we have S2 accounting equals to 144 plus 0.1 S1. Okay. Let's try to solve these functions here. Using the plugging method. You can do that, right? Or you can use different method, just any way you can solve this this function. Like for example, this times 10, right? That will bring this to S1 equals to S1 here, and you can use that to solve S2. You guys remember, right? Or this over here, this times 5, that will make this S2 equals to this S2. And we try to cancel each other out and figure out the S1. Right? That's another way to solve it. Right? You guys remember high school algebra, right? Don't tell me you don't remember anymore. Right? Right. So if you don't want to go that way, just use the good old plugging method. Right? They said S2 equals to this. Okay, let's plug it in. S2. Right over here, S2 equals to 144,000 plus 0.1. Plug in the S1 over here, 360 plus 0.2 S2. See that? And use this, you can solve the S1, S2. And after this is solved, right? Then we can figure out how the rest is allocated, right? We already figured it out over here using this formula. Okay, we can determine what each department's allocation rate is, right? Their percentage count. So if we write it out this way, okay, admin, accounting, okay, this is S1, this is S2, right? And domestic and international, okay? We know this have 360 to allocate. And over here, we have 144 to allocate. Okay. But the problem is that we inter-allocate first, right? So a portion of this 144 goes to here. A portion of 360 goes to here, right? So if we solve this, you will solve S1 and S2. I'm just so lazy to do that now. I'll just take a look at very quickly at the answer. So what we get here is 396,735. Okay, over here. And for accounting, what we solved is 1A3674. Okay, and that becomes the new number to allocate. And after that, we just use the percentage method again to allocate the 2 domestic, international, and over here, same thing, 2 domestic and 2 international. Okay, that will solve the problem. All right, so that's all 3 methods. So when it comes to tests, yes, I most likely will test like 1 or 2 of the method. No, I'll probably not torture you with a reciprocal method, right? Because it's cumbersome and it's not helpful. So I'll do step method perhaps, but if I get a little bit crazy and I forgot, I may give you reciprocal method, but most likely I won't. And because you see, in reality, reciprocal method is almost never used. Never. There's no way that you only have 2 service departments that is so convenient for you to calculate that inter-service charge. Usually it's like 5, 6, 7 service departments, right? And you have to consider every interaction with every department. This is, you need a metric algebra to solve it. And in the end of the day, what does that actually mean anyway? The inter-service allocation change every month or every year. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so far so good? Okay, we still have joint cost allocation to go through. Okay, let me see. Okay, so instead of going through the joint cost allocation, we will just go through the joint cost allocation next week. Okay, that's the second part of chapter 11. Okay, so I intentionally try to slow down today's lecture, so we take a slower pace. On top of that, we also use some time to talk about the midterm. So today's lecture is long, but this is what I'm telling you. So if we do this lecture and workshop mingle together, at the end of the night, you feel so tired, literally. You just can't go on. What am I listening to right now, right? So there's pros and cons of either method, right? So I think next week we will take a poll to see which way works better, right? We'll see whether you like to have the lecture and then workshop together, or just this way of lecture, workshop, right? Mingle together. So think about it next, and we are gonna see you next week. Okay, bye. And if you need to communicate with me, either email or text me. So let me try to work with you to see if there's any way that I can help you to get your grades up, right? If you don't like your midterm grade, right? I'm not gonna give up on you, and the midterm grade does not determine everything, right? Yeah, don't be like that. And you get bad midterm, the world is ending. No, it's not that way. I'm not a monster. All right. Okay, see you guys next week. Bye.